mind control, sex cults, bribery, trafficking, or really just traffic. I mean, not trafficking. Today on Spicy Monday, MSP conferences, the dark underbelly. What's up, everybody? I woke up today and I chose violence. We're going to talk today on this amazing Spicy Monday a little bit about the cultural shift I've seen happen in the MSP conference landscape over the last decade. Before we get into that, I do want to quantify there are a few things this video is not. This video, I am not trying to advocate against or for any particular conference. I'm going to talk about some conference categories because they're easy to talk about, not because I recommend pro or con against them. I also want to make clear conferences are an immense amount of work. I'll talk about that a little bit in the video. Everybody who is involved with throwing a conference, from the event organizers to the event sponsors, the hotel staff, the AV people, it is a ton of work. And everybody who's involved in throwing one of these, for us, they need an ROI on their event. And I just want to make sure before we get into this video that we just have that said in the back of our head. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of money. And all the people spending that money need an ROI. Let's talk about how the MSP conference landscape has kind of become a little bit effed up. So for those who don't know, for most of my career in the space, I was an MSP. And I've been attending conferences for over a decade. I unfortunately was not collecting conference badges until recently because I wasn't one of the cool kids who knew that was something you were supposed to do. But I used to go to IT Nation when it was very small and intimate. I have been to conferences that are big, conferences that are small, conferences that are for-profit, conferences that are not for-profit, conferences focused on educating on a particular subject, conferences for peer groups. Pretty much, if it's a conference, I've probably been to it. And I've been to most of them as an MSP. And so for a lot of this video, that is the mindset I am taking as the ICP of the conference, the buying attendee who wants to go to the conference to learn and consume. So why do you go to a conference? I would argue there's really three reasons. There's more than three, but there's really three main reasons that most people who pay to get a ticket to go to a conference are going to want to pay to go. The pain points the conference is solving. The first one is to find out and learn about new solutions. Despite the fact that the internet exists and you would think otherwise, it is surprisingly hard if, for example, Helped wants to get a new email filtering solution. How do I find all of them, right? It's not really that easy to just same problem that you have. Go into Google and look up MSP in my area and good luck with that list. It's not necessarily as easy to find information as one would think. So a conference, especially a conference that is focused around a particular concept, is likely to attract a lot of people in the room that can solve my pain point. That's one reason. Another reason is just to learn about either new business trends or different methodologies or ways of approaching a problem. A lot of the talk tracks at a lot of conferences are education focused. And the idea is to teach you about either something you didn't know, and a different way to think about something you already did know, or something that's going to affirm what you already suspected, but now a smart person at the front of the room has told you that you were right. And then the last reason I think a lot of us go to conferences is for that peer accountability and validation. We get to see other people who do what we do, who look like what we look like, who think like how we think, and we get to see what they are doing. And even though I would love to get on my soapbox and say, it doesn't matter what other people are doing, and I'll probably do that in this video, it's still a real powerful form of magic for all of us humans to be in that setting. So those are the main reasons I think most people attend a conference. So you might be thinking as you hear me say that, but wait, Dean, I don't need to attend 10 conferences a year to get that. You are correct. You do not. And in fact, depending on you, your goals, and your business maturity, you might not even need to attend one conference a year to achieve that. You might only need to attend 1 or 2 every couple of years. I was actually talking about this the other day with an MSP who made me this hat. It is me wearing my dog hat on a hat. It is very meta. Thank you, Rich. And we were talking about that idea that there's only so many new things any business can learn in a given year that they can actually meaningfully adapt and bring home and use. Ergo, you probably don't need to go to more than 1 or 2 conferences a year, if that. Where am I going with all of this? So based on that problem statement, it becomes apparent that conferences have to do something to generate demand. They have to create some pain to drive you in the door. Therefore, conferences are run, this is going to surprise nobody, like a business. I say that because I think it's important you understand that throughout the rest of the video. Being run like a business, whether it's for-profit or not-for-profit, does not equal bad. Business doesn't mean bad. Lots of good things are run like a business. Universities, sports franchises, all of these things are run like a business. Most of us have enjoyed them at some point. Some of us might even owe them money. The point is, they are run like a business. So you need to think of a conference as a business. And it is a business that is very crowded right now. There is way more supply than there is demand. So the business needs to create pain points so that you will have a demand. That is a really important element of how conferences work. Everybody understand that. Because if you don't understand that, you're not going to really understand why I'm aggravated in the next section. So a tonal shift I've seen in the last 3 or 4 years is that if there's an event, and let's say that the event's target demographic or ICP is an MSP that's going to come there to do one of the 3 things we talked about, look at solutions, learn more, meet their peers. So that's who I want to attend. That's my customer. If that's my target customer at my event, I need money and I need pain points to drive people in, so I need sponsors. I get my stable of sponsors, which are usually vendors. And the cultural shift I've seen is that these vendors have started pushing event organizers that anybody that doesn't fall into event organizer, sponsoring vendor, or attending MSP can just get right the hell out. And how dare you even consider allowing them in the door? It didn't used to be like that. And it has absolutely become that way recently. There has been a massive circling of wagons that if you didn't pay to play, you can get the F out. And I think that that is really foolish and short-sighted for a few reasons. But first, let's address it directly. Conferences are really expensive. So even a relatively small conference, let's say a nonprofit conference that's very, very friendly, MSP Geek, we'll use them as an example. I know I wasn't going to name or shame, so I won't shame. That's a pretty inexpensive, friendly conference. It's still not inexpensive to exhibit there, and they're on the cheap side. Kyle's a cheap date. Most of these conferences, just to get that little card table size table you see vendors at, I don't even mean like a 10 by 10 or a 15 by 15 booth. I mean like the little like table you'd put next to your grill size table. That could easily be a $25,000 investment just to get there. Not even the materials for the booth and the handout. The bigger events, it is not uncommon to easily be into it for 6 figures just to have what we would all consider to be a normal booth. This was a little shocking to me when I switched over to the vendor side. And I think some of that's because the larger, more established vendors have been throwing such extravagant booth experiences for so long, we've all kind of gotten used to that. So if you didn't know, I'm here to tell you most of the vendors in our space are probably under $10 million in revenue, and they are not just drowning in magical SG&A money any more than you are, MSPs. So these booths are very expensive for them. So I'm not saying this to make anybody feel bad for vendors. Vendors are choosing to spend their money on the conference. That's a choice they made, and we're going to hold them accountable for it. Dramatic foreshadowing. But I do want to point out that there is a certain incentive that the organizers and the vendors who sponsor have to protect their investment. And that leads me to the first thing where I think we're really having a huge misstep as an industry. This idea that I need to protect my investment. I need my ROI. What's my ROI going to be? My ROI is going to be direct lead capture at the event, and then some aspect of the list that I'm going to get from the event, however that list is structured. The list. I don't have an audio editing guy. Every time I said it, I'd have that echo in the background. There's this need to protect that sense of an ROI, which I get. I think we could all agree that we don't want people just randomly walking around events pitching to us in the hallways that we're not officially there. Unless you do want that. Let me know if you think that's a cool idea. Only elevator pitches, 2025, just random people. But my point being, we don't want that, right? Like as an MSP, I certainly don't want that. And most of the vendors don't. No one wants that experience. So there's an ROI the vendors want to get back. And the event organizers have a responsibility to preserve a certain level of balance so that we won't just have sales chaos everywhere in the event. I get that. I think we can all agree with that. Where I start to struggle with this point is where this ROI that I want starts to become an excuse to shut out anyone that isn't a buying MSP from any form of attendance at the event. And the reason that bugs me is this is the same advice fellow vendors, we would give to an MSP that would say something like, I don't want another MSP to know my pricing, or that I have too much competition, or my market is too small. We would laugh at them. MSPs, we laugh at you behind your back for saying that. We would laugh at you, and then we would tell you how foolish and wrong you are. There's enough business for everybody. So I posit the same to all the vendors. There's enough business for everybody. I've always been able to scrape an event list. I don't need to show up or pay to be there to do that. Stop being a child. And I've always been able to sell against you. I can do it right now. I can do it tomorrow. I can do it at the grocery store. I can do it in the middle of a field. I can do it on the moon, maybe not. I can do it underwater. The point is, a conference never was or wasn't the end-all be-all for me to sell against you or somehow capture your leads, yada, yada. Come up with a better ROI strategy than that if you're a vendor. Because if that is the only reason you're going to 20 events a year, we might need to have a conversation about how you're marketing and seeking referrals, because that's the same advice I'd give to an MSP. So, the other point, and the thing that really gets me riled up, and I had to re-record this video 3 times because I couldn't stop saying too many swears in the video, is, all right, why we talked about before, there are these 3 main reasons that an MSP would go to an event. Basically, to learn about new products and solutions, to educate themselves, and to meet and learn from their peers. I would posit that all of the pain points that drive an MSP to that behavior, all of the reasons that we would say that MSPs who bury their heads in the sand and don't do that are falling behind, that all applies to vendors as well. Like, you guys get that, right? I feel like that point started to go away the last few years, and that's really concerning to me. I'm not a security guy. I'm an operations guy. To me, with some, I'm not stupid, but a firewall's a firewall. EDR is EDR. Oh, like it's a thing you get. I'm not an expert in that. You want an expert in that, go watch Slagle's videos or Matt Lee or somebody. However, I am smart enough to understand that all of the pain points a modern MSP has, I have them too. Think about that for a minute. You're an MSP right now. You're panicking that one of the 4 remaining insurance vendors that will give out a cyber liability policy might not even accept you anymore. What are you doing? You are upskilling your team. You are training them. You are teaching them about phishing, pen testing, security awareness. You're putting in email filtering tools. You are putting in AV, EDR, a SIM tool, being monitored hopefully by a SOC and not just randomly spitting out log shit. You're doing all of this stuff just to protect your own house so you don't get friggity-frigged. And I want you to think about something for a minute. MSPs, I'll use me as an example. I work for an outsourced help desk vendor. I've got the keys to your house, and I don't live there. Think about that for a minute. So you've put all this work into protecting and securing your house, your bed and breakfast, so your guests, your clients don't get friggity-frigged while they're in your house. I've got a master key to your house. That's how we support you. And my staff goes in your house every day, and we don't live there. So our boots are muddy, and we don't know that that's a $60,000 rug that we're tracking mud over. Like, you already have that problem already with a vendor. And my staff can't go to a conference. Think about that. My staff at my outsourced help desk vendor, and it's not just me, there's lots of vendors of all sizes that have this. I can't send people to go learn about the latest, for example, email filtering tools. I've heard API-based email filtering is all the rage right now, but I don't know shit about shit. What if I want to send my lead tech to a security conference coming up to go meet and survey all of the email security vendors in the room so that they can learn about what the best option is, come back and we can implement that to make our email more secure so we don't friggity frig you? Not allowed to go. Think about that. Let's say I want to take some team members, not sales team members, not booth team members. I just want to send some team members to an event so they can learn about current trends and best practice, and allow them to meet some peers so they can start having some accountability and realize what they need to do to upskill themselves so they can be the best possible team members at Helped. I'm not allowed to do that. Why? Because I'm not a buying MSP and I didn't pay to sponsor the show. So out of that fear that I somehow am going to affect or challenge the ROI, remember, I'm willing to buy tickets for my staff to go to buy your products from you, MSPs and vendors, and learn from all of you. I don't think that is very smart. And it bothers me enough, as I said, that I had to re-record this a few times because I started dropping F-bombs. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is. It's effed up and really stupid. And the entire thing is based around a relatively small subset of the industry acting like children. Do better. At the end of the day, I think we can all agree that there's no need for the massive amount of conferences that currently exist. We all have event fatigue. So if you're a vendor or you're a group of MSPs, whatever, and you're listening to this, you're thinking, I should start my own conference. Just cut it out. Stop. This way. Everybody's got their own event. It's out of control. Stop it. It's too much event fatigue. That's part of the problem. I saw a discussion the other week, and I don't want to name anybody, that was going literally on that idea that there's so much event fatigue that some vendors are now relying on events as a crutch because they don't actually know how to market anymore. And we could go on a whole separate video series about how a lot of vendors have no idea how to talk to MSPs anymore. And I know this because I was your customer for a long time. And guess what? I never bought your stupid freaking tool. And I still ended up growing into one of the biggest MSPs in the space. So I don't need your bullshit to be successful. And you had no idea how to talk to me. So sorry if that hurt anybody's feelings. So I think we could all agree, too many conferences. I am not advocating to stop attending or sponsoring conferences. I am advocating the entire industry needs to do better. If you're watching this as an MSP saying, how can I have any effect on this, Dean? I'm just an MSP. Or if you're watching this as a vendor that's aggravated that you can't send some of your support staff to a support conference, or some of your security staff to a security conference, or some of your sales and marketing staff to a sales and marketing conference, not to shill, but to learn. What can I do? I can't do anything either. I'm just, as you said, Dean, I'm a vendor, probably less than 10 million revenue. I think what we can all do is start holding ourselves accountable a little bit better. Like I said at the beginning of the video, there is tact in everything. If I go to an event for Helped to learn, and I wear a little bit of help gear while I'm there because that's who I work for, I think that's fine. In the same way that when I went for TNS or I went for ThinkTech, I wore ThinkTech gear and TNS gear. That's where I worked. I was proud of it. What I do not think is fine if you're going as a vendor attendee is to blur that line for everybody that you are there to sell. So if you're there as an attendee, you are not at the booth. If your vendor is throwing an event, you are not working the event. You are not handing out t-shirts. You just can't. And I think any vendor who's watching this, you need to have some tact here and not be a jerk about it. If you're an MSP, I think that you should start holding your vendors accountable for what are you doing to educate yourself and protect your own shop. Pretend every vendor you work with is like a competing MSP. Who would you laugh at, and why would you laugh at them if they were a competing MSP? Perhaps it's an MSP that uses a brand of antivirus that was the hot trend 8 years ago that we've all stopped using, and laugh at those that do. Well, does the vendor use that? Because then laugh at them for that. I think that group accountability is really going to help us as a space kind of pull our heads out of our own asses around this topic, where everybody can be welcome at these events again for their actual intended purpose. Lastly, a parting message to all the people who run events. If you are one of the massive events that has existed since the before times, I'm not talking about you. Rightly or wrongly, you're the Coke, the Pepsi, the Dr. Pepper, the Snapple. You get your big event, so you're off the hook. Go over there. Everyone else, you need to get over yourselves. This is a very small space, but even given that, an infinitesimally small amount of the industry attends your events. Because you're throwing an event that 200, 500, maybe 1,000 people show up to, you are not the end-all be-all of the space. You're just a vendor or an organization that's throwing an event. If you want to look at what I think is an example of this done well, look at MSP Geek. They're not affiliated with any particular vendor. They're not sponsored by any one major vendor. And for the most part, they've made themselves very much open to anybody participating in some way, shape, or form. It's not perfect. Not perfect. I could roast them on some stuff. But if you want to look to how an event should be, look more in that direction. Those of you that are trying to do your own thing, I'm sorry, but you're not ConnectWise, you're not Kaseya, you're not Robin Robbins. You're not any of these things. You're not even freaking Cam from IT by Design. Cam's awesome. Like, just stop it with all these small nonsense events. Just enough. Simmer down. We don't need it. Make it virtual. Make it free. If the goal is to teach us, which is what you all claim, we will come. Trust me, we will. We'll give you money. Rejection Con showed that we will give you money. We will give you free money you didn't ask for. We will hand it to you. We don't necessarily need all the hocus pocus bullshit to want to give you money for your business. If you can't create demand in a product without creating fear and circling the wagons around the walls of your business, you don't have a viable business. Ha ha! Seriously, do better. Have a good Monday.